Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al-Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
Welcome back to the Al-Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. Israel again carried out strikes in Syria on Tuesday, saying they hit military targets in the country's south. 2 days earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu demanded the demilitarization of southern Syria. He said they will not allow the forces of Islamist former rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, aka HTS, or the new Syrian army to operate south of Damascus, and thus close to the Israeli border. He added that Israel will not tolerate any threats to the Druze ethno-religious community in southern Syria. So how did we get here? Israel struck military targets in Syria and moved its forces across the border after the HTS-led rebel offensive toppled President Bashar al-Assad in December. Israel said at the time that they hit military hardware that belonged to Assad's forces, and that Syria was no longer abiding by the border agreement between the two countries following the collapse of the Syrian government. For its part, the HTS-led Syrian transitional government has both condemned Israel's actions and also said they are not a threat to any of their neighbors. Syrian interim president Ahmed Shara, formerly known by his nom de guerre, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, has said the latter point himself. In some ways, this isn't new. Israel regularly carried out strikes in Syria when Assad was in power, hitting Iranian and Hezbollah military targets. Now, Iran and Hezbollah, both enemies of Israel, are both out of Syria, and their one-time battlefield enemy, HTS, is in charge. Yet Israel still has security concerns in Syria, especially in the south. What are these concerns exactly? My guest this episode is Al-Monitor Israel Pulse columnist Ben Caspit. Ben provides insights into Israel's thinking behind its actions in Syria and lays out what Israel hopes to achieve in the country. Hope you enjoy. Ben, welcome to the Al-Monitor Brief.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Ben, the first question is, why did Israel strike Syria this week and also demand the demilitarization of southern Syria?
Israel struck Syria because the intelligence started detecting suspicious activity, military activity, and this is a case of deterrence. Israel declared, I think even Prime Minister Netanyahu has already said that we will not accept any armed force south of Damascus because of the new situation. The action that was taken was is going to symbol or to show the other side that Israel is serious. They are not going to back from this declaration. From Damascus to the border of Israel, it should be clean from hostile forces until the dust settles and we will know whatever is going to happen in Syria.
And the leaders of Syria's transitional government have said that they don't want any conflict with their neighbors. How does Israel view statements like this?
Israel follows very carefully everything that is happening in Syria. And I spoke to many of the chief military and intelligence brass in Israel. The suspicious is there. There is no precedent of an Al-Qaeda or ISIS terrorist that becomes later an Amnesty International activist. Now, what the military in Israel think is that Julani and his people are in a mission. They want to gather money, they want to gather allies, they want to gather legitimation of their regime. Later, they will decide what to do with Israel, what to do with Lebanon, what to do with the Shiite acts, etc. So this is the reason right now no one think that this is the time to believe all the declarations. They will be judged by action, not declarations. So the step that was decided upon in the Israeli cabinet is not to let any hostile or armed force go southern from Damascus, between Damascus and the Golan Heights. By the way, this is not a large territory. I guess something like 40 to 50 kilometers, and this space should be clean until they will maybe prove that they're out for peace, not for war.
And just a quick follow-up. Do we know anything about the specific armed groups that they believe are operating south of Damascus? Like, are they concerned about the local militias there or who?
Right now, the concern is local militias, and there is another very major development concerned to the Druze. There is a large Druze community, many Druze villages in that area, and right now the Druze are gathering force and they want to declare independence. And by the way, this is a very, very good scenario from the eyes of Israel because we have a Druze community in Israel as well. They are loyal citizens. They serve in the IDF. And when Netanyahu spoke in the other day, he also threatened the al-Julani regime not to mess with the Druze. And if you'll ask me later what Israel wants to happen, is maybe the best scenario is a Druze colony between Damascus and the Golan Heights.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Ben Caspit after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al-Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al-Monitor to follow what leaders and decision makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25 for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Ben, how are Israel's recent actions in Syria viewed by the Israeli public and political opponents of Netanyahu? Is there any opposition to these, or are people generally behind the military actions?
People are generally behind the military actions because people like this to succeed, and whatever we did in the northern frontier vis-a-vis Lebanon, Syria, and Iran, it was a huge and major success, and it's also for free. No one demands from us nothing. We don't pay price in people or losses or something, and when this kind of thing happens in Israel, so we don't have any opposition. Most of the Israeli public, maybe not most, all of the Israeli public, is concerned in the situation in the south. We still have 24 live living hostages in Gaza. We just got the famous Bibas family, the mother and two toddlers, the redheads. We got their bodies, and all the Israelis are mourning now these three people, and no one cares about what happens in the north. It is far from the heart, far from the pocket, and everybody is behind the government in this case.
And the last question, you alluded to it earlier, but what does Israel want to see happen in Syria? Not just in the south, but perhaps in the country as a whole.
This is the most important thing that we are dealing with right now. First of all, you have to understand that Israel had many years of peace and quiet in Syrian front. When Hafez al-Assad, the father, was in charge, and later his son Bashar al-Assad, the only thing we should know, talking about intelligence, is what is happening between Assad's left ear and Assad's right ear. In his mind, if you know what Assad is planning, so you can be relaxed. And we had with Syria, we had two wars, 67 and 73, and that's it. The border was quiet. Everybody knew what is going to happen. We had a lot of understandings with the Syrian regime without having peace. So this Muslim Arab dictatorship was very good for Israel. And the Golan Heights was the most relaxed and peaceful territory in Israel for years. Then we had the war in Syria, and it brought with it a huge, unprecedented mess, including a lot of fights on the border. And now we have the Julani regime that is still has to prove himself as a force that can be sovereign in Syria. So the best scenario from Israeli eyes is just having peace treaty with Syria. Even al-Julani's Syria sign a peace treaty, not giving back. Of course, no one in Israel will support giving back the Golan Heights after everything that happened, and get rid of this front. But we have only maybe 1% for this to happen. The worst case scenario is a jihadi state, a hostile jihadi state, maybe Julani's, on the border with the backing of Turkey. And as we know, President Erdogan is not a very good friend, not of Netanyahu nor of Israel. And this is the worst case. This is the nightmare. Between these two options, you have a lot of cases that, ad hoc cases. And I think the best one for Israel is cantonization of Syria in a way that the closest canton between Damascus and the Golan Heights will be Druze. We have a historic relationship even with the Syrian Druze. We have Syrian Druze in the Golan Heights. We helped the Druze during the very long civil war in Syria, and we know how to deal with it. And we even, as I told you before, Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about the Druze and threatened the Syrian regime not to mess with the Druze. So this is the best. The best thing that we can expect, and until it happens, even if it will not happen, Israel is not going to withdraw from the Hermon mountain. It conquered the Syrian side of the Hermon mountain, which is a very important strategic point, and of course is not going to let any armed force get between Damascus and our borders. This is the status quo right now, and let's see what happens.
Just a quick follow-up. Is there any concern that some in the Druze community have historically supported Assad and that others may oppose Israel?
Yes, the Druze historically always support the regime in the state that they live. But there is a very interesting case because Israel, as we know, conquered the Golan Heights from Assad in 1967. And all the Druze in the Golan Heights refused to get Israeli citizenship, Israeli ID, and it took them dozens of years to change their mind. Lately, in the last 10 to 20 minutes, and especially after what happened in Syria, the Druze in the Golan Heights, which originally are Syrian, right now they are more Israeli. If you ask them anonymously why they wish to happen, they will not support handing back the Golan Heights to Syria because they will find themselves in the middle of a mess. In Israel, they have good economy, a relatively quiet life, security, etc. So the Druze in Syria, it is called the Druze Mountain. There are a few very major villages there, are connected to their brothers in the Golan Heights and inside Israel. And this is a very good beginning for an alliance.
Ben, thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to more of your reporting.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Al-Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al-Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.